The British monarchy is currently undergoing a transformation so silent, yet so profound, that it has escaped the notice of the average observer for years. When the headlines recently blared that King Charles had granted Princess the title of Royal Regent or elevated her role to a new, unprecedented level of authority, the public was left stunned. However, to those who understand the machinery of the palace, this was not a sudden burst of royal decree. It was a culmination of a long, deliberate, and quiet constitutional strategy that began in the dark rooms of Westminster back in 2022. The narrative being spun by the media is one of a dramatic, last-minute intervention to save a monarchy in distress due to the king's health battles. But the reality is far more calculated. This was an act of architectural engineering, where the king, fully aware of his own mortality and the fragility of his institution, reinforced the backbone of his crown by empowering the only person he has ever truly trusted, his sister, the Princess Royal. To understand why this matters, one must strip away the gloss of royal pageantry and look at the Councilors of State Act. For decades, the list of those who could deputize for the monarch was dictated by the Regency Act of 1937, a rigid structure that relied on the spouse and the first 4 adults in the line of succession. This meant that the pool of potential power holders was tied to bloodline and marriage, regardless of individual capability or public standing. But under King Charles, this changed. He didn't just tweak a list. He fundamentally altered the legal framework to ensure that Princess and Prince Edward were permanently cemented as pillars of the crown, unlike others, whose status as counselors shifts like sand as the line of succession changes, and in Edward were granted a lifetime appointment. This was a signal, a quiet, non-verbal message sent by the king to his advisors, his family, and his people. This is who runs the ship when I cannot. And why? And because she is the only one who has zero personal stake in the throne. She will never be queen. She is not chasing personal popularity, and she has spent half a century proving that her commitment to the institution is absolute. She is the constitutional shock absorber. While the world focused on the scandals of Prince Harry, the awkwardness of Prince Andrew, or the preparation of Prince William, Princess Anne was in the background, doing the work that kept the lights on. She has attended thousands of engagements, visited the most desolate war zones, and navigated the most complex administrative challenges, all without a single complaint or demand for a grand headline. This is not just service. It is a masterclass in stability. When the king realized that his cancer diagnosis would require a different kind of management, he didn't reach for new solutions. He reached for the most reliable tool in his box. The palace now functions in a way that allows the red box, the lifeblood of state paperwork, to move through the system even when the king is incapacitated. Princess Anne now holds a key to that process, legally authorized to participate in Privy Council meetings, sign state papers, and receive ambassadors. This is not a ceremonial role. It is the exercise of executive power. She is, for all intents and purposes, the shadow guardian of the British state, an invisible force that ensures that while a monarch may be human and susceptible to illness, the monarchy itself remains an unmoving, functional entity. This is the story of how one woman's lifetime of silence and hard work became the final safeguard for an ancient institution. To truly appreciate why Princess has been elevated to this position of constitutional trust, one must look past the titles and examine the sheer, relentless operational reality of her work. For over 5 decades, the Princess Royal has functioned as the engine room of the monarchy. While other members of the royal family have navigated the turbulent waters of personal branding, tabloid scrutiny, and the pursuit of individual fame, and has maintained a trajectory of absolute, unwavering consistency. The red box, that iconic burgundy leather dispatch box, is not merely a symbol of authority. It is a physical representation of the machinery of state. Every day, thousands of documents, intelligence summaries, and legislative briefs flow from government ministers and civil servants to the sovereign. This flow cannot stop. If it does, the British state grinds to a halt. In the past, this was a process managed solely by the king or the reigning monarch. However, we are living in an era where the monarch's health can no longer be assumed as an indestructible constant. This is where the operational genius of King Charles's strategy becomes clear. By legally cementing Princess Anne and Prince Edward as permanent councilors of state, he has created a fail-safe system that ensures the red box never sits unattended when the king is undergoing cancer treatment or fulfilling duties abroad, and is the one who steps into the void. She attends Privy Council meetings. She signs routine legislative documents, and she receives the credentials of new ambassadors. These are not symbolic gestures. These are the functions of a head of state. Think of the logistical complexity. A single investiture ceremony requires meticulous planning, an intimate knowledge of protocol, and the ability to project the dignity of the crown to recipients who have traveled from across the globe to be recognized. And does not just show up. She masters the briefing, remembers the names, understands the achievements, and manages a ceremony with a level of technical precision that leaves officials stunned. This has been her life's work. In 2023 and 2024, she was officially recognized as the hardest working member of the royal family, clocking in hundreds of engagements annually. What makes this feat even more remarkable is not just the number of events, but the diversity of them. She serves as patron to hundreds of organizations, ranging from maritime charities and engineering institutions to agricultural societies and military units. Most royals specialize, finding a niche in arts or environment, and does not specialize. She functions as a universal utility for the monarchy. She visits war-torn regions to oversee humanitarian logistics. She engages with military veterans to understand their struggles, and she advocates for unpaid caregivers, a group often overlooked in national policy. This breadth of experience is exactly why she is the most trusted figure in the institution. She brings a practical, get-on-with-it attitude that cuts through bureaucratic fluff that often surrounds a palace. Her colleagues describe her as direct, efficient, and notoriously intolerant of time wasting. In a system built on centuries of tradition and often sluggish etiquette, Anne's blunt, results-oriented style is the oil that keeps the gears moving. When the king faces his most difficult health challenges, he doesn't need people who will worry about optics. He needs people who can handle the administrative burden without fanfare. That is why this soft regency arrangement is so effective. It is a quiet distribution of power that allows the institution to continue functioning as if nothing has changed. Every document she signs, every meeting she chairs, and every ambassador she receives is a strike against the possibility of institutional paralysis. She is a human backup drive for the British state, a role she has been preparing for since the day she took on her first royal duty. And as the monarchy enters this uncertain decade, with the aging Dukes of Kent and Gloucester slowly stepping back, and the number of working royals shrinking to a critical few, her role has transitioned from a supporting player to a central pillar. She is the bridge between the stability of the Queen's era and the future reign of Prince William, ensuring that the monarchy survives not through dramatic change, but through the quiet, efficient, and daily exercise of duty. As we look toward the horizon of the British monarchy, the true brilliance of King Charles's strategic positioning becomes crystal clear. We are entering an era where the institution cannot afford vanity, superficial pageantry, or empty symbolism. The modern world moves too fast. Economic and political pressures are too intense, and the public eye is too discerning for a monarchy that relies solely on past glory. This is why the elevation of princess and as a permanent, lifetime Councilor of State and the silent anchor of the crown is the most consequential decision of Charles's reign. Consider the sheer mathematical reality facing the House of Windsor. 5 years ago, 15 working royals carried out the public duties of the state. Today, following the loss of Queen Elizabeth, the departure of Harry and Meghan, the permanent sidelining of Prince Andrew, and the natural retirement of older members, that active roster has shrunk to just 10. Soon, with the aging Dukes of Kent and Gloucester stepping back, that number may dwindle to a critical 7. 7 people holding the entire weight, expectation, and operational burden of a global institution. Among those 7, Princess stands alone as the ultimate non-heir power center. She does not seek the spotlight. She has never cultivated a social media brand, and she refuses to pander to the shifting tides of internet culture. Instead, she relies on something far more enduring, absolute, unyielding reliability. When historians look back at this decade, they will note that while the headlines were dominated by drama and speculation, the actual survival of the crown was quietly engineered behind closed doors through legislative foresight and relentless daily service. King Charles did not just protect his own reign. He future-proofed the throne for Prince William. When the Prince of Wales eventually ascends, he will not inherit a fractured, paralyzed institution struggling to find its footing. He will inherit a monarchy whose administrative engine never stopped, whose legal obligations were faithfully discharged, and whose dignity was fiercely protected by a woman who spent 50 years treating duty as her highest calling. Princess has proven that true power does not require a crown, a grand title, or public applause. It requires showing up, reading the brief, mastering the details, and getting the job done without complaint. In an age of uncertainty, she is a immovable rock upon which the modern British state rests. The royal regent title, whether spoken of in dramatic headlines or recognized as the quiet legal reality it truly is, merely formalizes what the palace, parliament, and the people have known all along. Princess is the unbreakable backbone of the British monarchy, and without her, the entire edifice would simply stand exposed.